Today I'm going to tell you about the plot of the 2024 movie called Heretic, which will present us with a tense story about a maniac tormenting two girls using psychological tricks.
I can show you God, if you're willing to die.
The plot of the film begins with a conversation between two missionary girls, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. They discuss the Book of Mormon and an unusual erotic video where Paxton noticed a look of remorse on the actress's face when she was caught off guard during filming. Based on this genuine reaction of the sinful woman, she concluded that there is something beyond reason, namely the soul. After the conversation, the young girls continue their work, namely offering random passers-by conversations about God. Most people aren't interested, and the youth, under the pretext of taking a group photo, decide to play a prank on them by pulling Paxton's skirt up to see the so-called magic bloomers. The offended girls make their way to the mansion where a certain Mr. Reed lives. They aren't visiting him by chance. He had previously shown interest in the church, so his house was put on a special list of addresses to visit. The offended girls reach the mansion where a certain Mr. Reed lives. It's not a coincidence that they're visiting him. He had previously shown interest in the church, so his house was added to a special list of addresses to visit. After locking their bikes to the fence, the girls knock on the door while rehearsing their speech, all amidst the pouring rain. An elderly man opens the door with a watering can in his hands and, emphasizing the weather, invites the guests to come inside. Before stepping inside, the missionaries ask if there are any women in the house, since they aren't allowed to be alone with a man. Mr. Reed clarifies that his wife is in the house, who is busy making a blueberry pie. The girls take him at his word and step inside. As soon as the man goes to get the pastries, the missionaries take a look at the details of their surroundings. Reed comes back with soda, coffee, and a scented candle. He starts asking questions to understand how these girls came to their religion. Barnes replies that after her father's death, her mother started exploring different faiths and settled on the Mormons. The host himself studied questions of faith for a long time to understand which religion is truly the right one. He's not only familiar with the Book of Mormon, but he also has a copy readily available. Rick asks Barnes, did her father try to reach out from the other side? Paxton, feeling that the conversation is starting to cross the line of tact, shares that after she dies, she wants to become a butterfly and land on the hands of those who were important to her. Next, Mr. Ritt asks how the girls feel about polygamy, one of the most controversial aspects of the Mormon religion, which was later abolished. Later, he adds that the founder of this religion had about 27 wives. Barnes replies that it was a necessary measure for the survival of the religion in tough times. When the situation improved, that permission was revoked for ethical reasons. Then the elderly intellectual starts a conversation about fast food, making some interesting analogies. Feeling uncomfortable, Paxton asks the man to bring his wife so they can continue the conversation according to Mormon rules. When Rita leaves, Barnes notices that the scented candle on the table smells like blueberry pie. When he returns, the man calls the girls to follow him and then he will introduce them to his wife. Realizing all the oddities happening, Barnes comes up with an excuse to leave, specifically a sudden call from the boss asking them to return. They remember the key to the bike lock that was left in the coat, which the man took deeper into the house. Deciding to leave the bikes and walk, the girls realize that the front door is locked. Suddenly, the lights go out in the house and they decide to find the host. Finding Reed in the library, busy with a leaky roof, the hostages also notice their outerwear. Taking the coat, the missionaries find the key, but not in Barnes's pockets where it should have been. Instead, they ask the host, Paxton, to open the front door.
The door won't open.
The front door?
Yeah, the front door won't open again.
But he replies that the lock is on a timer and will only open in the morning. You can exit through another entrance, which has two doors of different colors. After that, Ritt states that no one could have called them because the house has iron in its walls and roof, which blocks the cell signal. When asked again to invite his wife, the man responds with a question, asking if they still believe in her existence.
Despite all the evidence to the contrary, the scented candle, the absence of an oven with blueberry pie.
He connects this question to life wisdom, saying you shouldn't believe everything that is said with a convincing look. Next, the host of the house and the one with the smart talk asks the girls to decide which door they will exit through. In response, the missionaries say that the elder will definitely notice their absence. Meanwhile, their leader, noticing the storm outside, actually starts checking the lists of who has returned and who hasn't. In the end, he notices that the two missionaries haven't checked in. Ritt starts to clarify the details of the girls' future path to freedom. To make the choice of doors easier, the man starts a historical lecture based on discussions about 3 versions of the game Monopoly, 3 religions, and 3 songs. Putting the board games next to the books about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Reed explains that the board games and religions are reissues of the same original material. He says the same thing about the song in the background, an unknown original for the more popular track by Radiohead called Creep. Then the man poses a question: why did the later versions become more popular than the originals? Christianity surpassed Judaism, and Monopoly, which is a parody of land ownership, has taken over the whole world. He then adds that in all religions, he managed to count more than 10 different deities born on the day of Christ's birth. After all the conclusions, the man gives his answer. It's all about advertising and those who work in it. After that, he shifts the conversation to Barnes and Paxton, stating that they are just the managers promoting a product, which is an idea. After that, the man takes a chalk and writes different words on the doors: faith and disbelief. Next, he urges them to make a choice. While Reed gets distracted by changing the record, Barnes quietly picks up a knife she likes and hides it in her pocket. Paxton chooses disbelief, while Arns on the other hand chooses faith, after which he presents a bunch of arguments and details that dismantle Rild's points.
Sister Paxton, do you still believe in God?
Yes.
Then let's leave through here.
After that, Paxton decides to support her friend's choice, and they both go through the door marked Faith. The man closes the entrance behind them, after which the path of the missionaries is shrouded in darkness. Shining her phone to light the steps, the girl goes down further until she comes across another door leading to a basement, which was also accessible through the first door. Realizing that they are trapped, the girls start to think about what to do next. They decide to use a table and a chair to reach the window, but unfortunately it wasn't high enough. In their attempt to escape, they pull off a wooden stick with nails. Hearing distant footsteps, the girls return the furniture to its original positions. Then Barnes hurriedly hands her friend the hidden knife, and mentions the code phrase that she should use to strike Reed in the neck. The phrase turns out to be the 2 words magic pants. A woman in a cloak enters the basement with a flashlight and a blueberry pie on a plate. She puts everything on the table while folding herself into a strange position. The missionaries hear music through the intercom. Meanwhile, Mr. Reed adds a new participant to the act in the mini version of his mansion. Barnes goes up to disbelief through the door that was left open after the woman entered. Through the crack, she notices a box of matches lying on the carpet, but she doesn't have time to do anything because Reed comes back on the line. The host claims that the person in the cloak is a true prophet of God, and he is sure he knows which religion is the truth. As proof, Rick wants to show them a real miracle, resurrection. The girls watch as the woman sits down at the table and eats the poisoned pie, after which she loses consciousness. The host asks the missionaries to check the woman's pulse and breathing to confirm her death. The girls, following the instructions, agree that she is indeed dead. Then Reed claims that after her resurrection, the woman will tell them the truth about what happens after death. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell of the mansion. The experiment was interrupted by a Mormon elder who went in search of his missing subordinates. The girls run upstairs to call for help, but Reed wisely closes all the doors behind them. When he meets the elder, the man lies that he hasn't seen anyone. Meanwhile, the captives are trying to pull matches from a crack in the carpet to start a fire and signal with the smoke. As the Mormon leaves, he walks past the spot where the bikes were parked, but there's no sign of them anymore. Meanwhile, the girls manage to get a few matches after all. As Paxton goes down, she notices that the body of the poisoned woman is lying in a slightly different position. Barnes responds that now is not the time to get distracted. They strike the matches against the stone wall, trying to ignite a piece of fabric. The suddenly deceased woman comes to and spews out goo onto the burning match. She claims that she saw light and clouds, and at the end, she whispers that it's all unreal.
It's not real.
Next, Reed comes down to help the resurrected woman get back up. After that, he asks the captives what the woman told them. He keeps insisting that the afterlife exists, that he has undeniable proof, and that the girls can see it for themselves. However, Barnes believes that this is all some kind of trick and a deception aimed at pushing them towards choosing voluntary death. The girl shares that she experienced clinical death in her childhood, and the words of the prophetess are just typical near-death hallucinations. Dimming Mr. Reed's attention, Barnes insists that it's all a trick, just like magic pants. After that line, a knife cuts a throat, but not Reed's, it's Barnes's. It seems the man knew about the conspiracy and decided to strike first. Paxton panics and runs, but the door at the end of the stairs is locked. When she returns, she sees the killer, who claims that Barnes will be resurrected too. When nothing happens after a few minutes, he makes an incision near the scar on her arm and pulls out a foreign object. Reed claims that it was this piece of metal that prevented her from coming back to life. Everything around is a matrix, and she's just a program designed to enhance people's perception. Then he starts weaving in the concept of the Tao about the butterfly dream and claims that only death can help escape the simulation. Paxton doesn't believe it, as she knows that the implant was just a hormonal contraceptive. Next, she starts thinking like Sherlock about the resurrection. She thinks that Reed pulled a trick with the dead body, swapping the woman's corpse with a living double while the girls were busy with the matches. However, when the prophet added about the unreality at the end, it forced the master to come up with something about a simulation. In response, the master says that there should be another exit in the basement. The observant Paxton notices a drain under the table. After she scraped away the layer of dirt around it, she discovers a hatch leading somewhere even deeper. Rick suggests she test her theory. Then he adds that down there, she'll be able to understand which religion is actually true. Paxton goes down and finds a body lying in a puddle. Reed closes the lid behind her, forcing her to move only forward. The girl goes through several doors with symbols of different religions until she hits the last one, locked with a bike lock. She pulls a key out of her pocket and realizes that Reed had planned all of this, knowing everything in advance. Behind the door was a room with cages, where other prophets were sitting. The owner appears from the other side. Paxton admits that she finally understands his plan. The only truth of religion is control. Reed nodded in agreement with her thoughts.
Religion is just a system of control.
He tells the girl that she has been controlled her whole life, managing everything she does, even down to the pants she has to wear. Hearing the word trigger, the girl remembers the knife and suddenly strikes her teacher in the neck. Next, the girl rushes to the exit, but getting lost along the way, she finds herself back in the basement near Barnes's body. Still alive, Reed managed to sneak up on Paxton and stab the girl in the stomach. Reed asks the Mormon girl to pray. In response to this, she talks about the experiment. One group of patients was divided into two parts. They prayed for some, but not for others. The prayers, as expected, brought no results. Despite this, prayers still have a right to exist, as it is a manifestation of caring for someone else. After that, she starts to pray while the barely alive maniac crawls towards her. As he raises the knife, the man gets hit in the face with a stick that has nails. As it turned out, Barnes had just been unconscious all this time and has now come to her senses to take revenge on her tormentor. The last desperate surge of life takes all of Barnes' strength, and she dies in her friend's arms. Wounded Paxton decides to leave this terrible place and heads upstairs. Finding a model of the house, she manages to discover a hidden passage outside. The girl trudges through the snow for a while, but then she's hit by a spasm of pain. After a little while, she notices a butterfly that has landed on her hand. Given the season, it seems unreal. Suddenly, the beautiful insect just disappears, as if it was a hallucination. At this moment, the film ends, leaving a huge layer of philosophical subtext for all the viewers. We have a very unusual film in front of us, the plot of which encourages people to reflect on all religions, as well as what makes a person good or bad. The actors' performances are magnificent, the atmosphere is very tense, and of course the brilliant Hugh Grant, without whom this film probably wouldn't have worked. At the time of this recap, the film has a rating of 7.2 on IMDB. How would you rate this film? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. That brings us to the end of our video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you found it interesting, then definitely support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Well, this was Stas, who is already preparing a new recap for you. Stay healthy, watch only good movies, and play only good games. Good luck to everyone and goodbye.